For today's tutorial, we're going to use this heart punch from Stampin' Up! To create a fun apple honeycomb shape out of lightweight designer paper. I'm using this nice newsprint paper from Stampin' Up! And it's very lightweight, and so you'll need a lot of shapes. For this project, you need to punch or die cut 25 of these little hearts. And I'm using 2 layers of the paper at a time to punch with, and that just makes it go quite a bit faster. So after you have all your little shapes punched, you want to fold each one in half, being careful to line up the edges, make sure they're even, and go ahead and crisp up the crease with your bone folder. It's very important that the edges be aligned, or when you go to put your shape together, it'll be just a little bit wonky, and nobody wants a wonky honeycomb shape. Now, as I'm doing this, I just realized looking at my bone folder that it belongs to a girl in one of my classes. So I'm sorry, Neelam. There's no such thing as a perfect crime, and I'm going to have to give you back your bone folder next time I see you at the next class. So when you get close to finishing your little hearts, the next step is going to be to stick them all together. Now, this is where it becomes obvious why it's so important to have a symmetrical shape, because you want the shape to fan out nicely once you've lined up the center portion of the shape. So to start with, take the very first folded shape, put a little bit of adhesive on it, and then carefully line up the second folded shape on top of it, lining up those straight edges again. And as you put more and more of these together, they kind of have a tendency to creep and get out of line. So just pay attention to how well they're aligned before you really stick them down there permanently. Now I'm going to put my last one on, and you can see how this fun fan shape takes place. Oh, I just love those. It's like those little centerpieces we used to have when I was a kid, little honeycomb centerpieces in the middle of your birthday party. It's so cute. But since this is a heart and I want an apple, I'm going to take my rubber scissors and just cut off the bottom tips of all the hearts. And then you'll see that it has a much more apple-y shape now. And I like to do it when they're all together. You can also trim them individually before you tape them together. But I'm just kind of impatient, so that's what I do. Now I'm going to take cherry cobbler dye ink in a sponge, and I'm going to sponge the bottom half of the apple. So the bottom half is going to be red. This is the perfect color for this. And I'm just mostly going to hold the shape together while I sponge to get the edges colored. But on the top half, I'm going to use a little bit different technique. But you can put as much or as little color on here as you want. I tend to get the edges a little bit more inky. You could also spray it. If you have any kind of an ink spray, you could mask and spray the different sections of the apple. And that would still allow this fun text to show through, but would give you a lot of fun color and depth. So for the second part, I'm going to take Lucky Limeade, also a dye-based ink, a nice appley fresh green, and I'm going to ink the top half of the apple the same way, or I'm going to start out the same way. First, I'm just going to brush with the shape closed, brush some ink on there. But I want the green color on this apple to be a little bit more intense. And so after I get done doing the edges, there's a very quick and easy way to get a little more saturated color on the apple. And what you do is you just open each one of the adhered folds and you sponge into the inside of the shape. And then even when the shape is closed, you're going to see a lot more ink than you would if you just did the edges. So now I'm going to do my very last little section. After you folded all of those, this part's a breeze. It doesn't take long at all. And you can see how it's starting to look like a real apple. So the next step will be to finish my card. And to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is add a little greeting, which I think is perfect for a teacher. It says, "We meet no ordinary people in our lives" by C.S. Lewis. This is a Stampin' Up! Greeting. And that is certainly true of teachers. There are no ordinary teachers. So I thought it was fitting. And I'm going to use a little bit of score tape on each of the finished ends of the apple. And this shape likes to kind of spring together, so make sure you're at the edges when you go to glue this down or it'll be lopsided. And then just squish the spines, basically, of the shape together so that it holds its shape when you get it down on the card. And then you can just stick it down and it fans out like magic. I just love that. And what's even better is it folds flat for mailing, so you don't have to worry about extra postage for a bulky card. Next, I'm going to take the same newsprint over a piece of early espresso cardstock and my bird punch. And I'm just going to put it in the punch far enough to get the leaf and the stem. And I'm punching these both at the same time because I need one of each color. I need the leaf in text and I need the stem in this brown. And I just find it's easier to do all this after the apple is already down on the page and I know where I want it. So I'm going to give the leaf just a quick brush of Lucky Limeade to make it match my apple before I stick it down. I'm just going to pop it at the top of the shape so that it stands up a little bit above the apple. And then do the same with the brown stem. And now I have a nice, clean and simple background to showcase this adorable shape that I've created. And I also have one that I did in glimmer paper. Oh, that is so pretty. It's so glittery. And this paper's thicker, so I didn't use quite as many shapes, but it's still a pretty dazzling effect.